As I was prefacing these guys before this call started and before this podcast started, I've worked with each of these coaches from different backgrounds, different coaching containers. They all have a unique story, which I can't wait to share more on. But the common theme was that what they had tried just simply wasn't working. This is not about certain methodologies. This is not about certain containers, but this is about building a stable business that lets you sleep at night, enjoy your life, and ultimately create better relationships with your partners, et cetera. And so I'm really excited to just share each of these coaches' stories and showcasing what their business looks like a year or close to that post Fitness Coach Academy. So, whenever we think about where the business is and where it was when you first started, I'm going to call on some of these coaches individually. And what I want you guys to do is just share a little bit about where your head was at. Some of you were about to quit, right? Some of you were thinking, like, is this really going to work for me? Can I do this? And so, this is your chance to just be really vulnerable and raw with where you were. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the details. But in a very condensed, maybe 1 minute summary, I would love for you all to tell me where you were when we first started working together. For some of you, that was a long time ago, and where you were a year later, or more importantly, where you are now. So, Jess, I'm going to start with you and tell me again the kind of people you're working with, because some of you guys work with Gen Pop, some of you are bodybuilding coaches, some of you are gut health experts, functional, all the things. So, Jess, I'm going to start with you. Tell me where you were when we first started working together.
Sure. So I started in FCA working with more Gen Pop and wanting to work with bodybuilders. Bodybuilding was my background, and I would say I was definitely kind of winging it with my coaching. So I joined FCA in the early stages of really going all in on my business, even though I've been in the personal training space and bodybuilding and into fitness for a long time. I always hoped while I was competing and posting on Instagram that clients would just kind of fall into my lap and say, "Oh, you got your pro card, like coach me." And winging it was not working for me. I ended up joining the FCA after I went through some education and mentoring on more of the functional health side, which was like just a first step for me in uh, figuring out what kind of clients I wanted to work with. And then I soon realized after meeting other coaches that I needed guidance on the business side. Um, I got connected through the education I went through with Taylor, basically, and I met some other coaches who had worked with her, including Elena, who I found out was in FCA helping out. So it was a very easy decision for me. I answered Taylor's DMs back and started binging some of her podcasts, and right away kind of decided, okay, I'm going to apply for FCA. Let's get this thing started. So where I was at when I started was, like I said, winging it with coaching. I was doing a lot of in-person training and trying to take online clients on the side with a little bit of an idea of how to about doing that. Right, I had an app to use, but I was using Venmo for payments. I was undercharging, to say the least, and doing a lot of back and forth between different gyms and different kind of rates for different clients, trying to figure that out. I mean, I had a lot of people paying like less than 200 a month for full on coaching and undercharging for personal training sessions as well. Spreading myself thin, working a lot, and not really sure like what a big picture looked like. I ultimately knew that I wanted to go that functional route a little bit more, as that was the education that I was interested in pursuing, and I wanted to work with more bodybuilders. But I needed help on the marketing side and organization 100% for me. So I went from starting out there with that unclear vision and a disorganized business, making like inconsistent like 2K to 6K months. I had some good months, but it wasn't consistent or predictable at all, to about a year later crossing the 10K threshold and looking to cross 16K MRR here soon. But besides the money, just the biggest thing for me is like the mindset change that I've made working with Taylor and FCA, and then quickly graduating on to 4% and just being in the container and meeting all these awesome people and, sharing our, um, you know, different things that we're working on and just kind of melting of the minds. I've gone from, just wanting to coach Gen Pop and coach some bodybuilders and learn how to do that better to now thinking about mentoring and doing things like lead magnets and email sequences. I have a virtual assistant. Like I never thought that I'd be having employees in my business. I just thought, oh, okay, I'll post on Instagram and I'll try to get clients and keep hustling to try to get clients, and that'll keep coming for me. And now here we are. Like obviously, I'm still working on other things and have other goals in the business that I want to just continue improving on. But I have systems. I have a virtual assistant to help me out with things, and I'm doing things that I never even knew were something I consider as a part of my business when I
And that's
start.
one of my favorite things, in my opinion, about watching you guys grow is there gets to be a point where you no longer have to focus on money first. And that's my favorite place to get to a client because, yes, the money is amazing. And at the very beginning of your business, those of you listening that might be thinking, I have to pay the bills, like that's the main priority. Absolutely. Money is totally the focus in the beginning because you do have to get out of that scarcity mindset for sure. But my favorite thing is specifically like Jess, I remember our call, I think it was maybe a month ago or two calls ago, but you were like, I've hit every one of my goals and I'm actually really excited to like pause for a second and really focus on my vision because we're already talking about 2026. And for context, we're recording this in April of 2025. And my favorite thing for you is we finally got out of that money cycle and you're now actually thinking like a business owner. And that is so fun for me. So I love that. So Sam, I'm going to go to you next because you can share your backstory, but feel free to summarize kind of how you were feeling in the beginning and just like where the evolution has kind of taken you. Because I think for you, a lot of what you were taught in the beginning almost made you kind of resent what you were building and kind of question a lot of things. I know I'm constantly probing you with questions, but I'd love to know kind of how that evolution has been for you.
Yeah. So I learned a lot of stuff from a different coaching container. And I swear that was like a whole lifetime ago now. I feel like it was like 5 years ago now. And I'm still trying to like, can I swear on this podcast? I can swear, right? I'm still trying to like unfuck my mind with some of the stuff still. And obviously, like we've talked about that, Taylor, but where I was for 3 years was just trying to start something, which 3 years to start is so long, but I was doing some in-person training just at a local gym, and that was going fine. I had never really thought of like putting those clients online. Like I just knew that was kind of the consistency, and my online was very much not consistent. I would get clients, I would get a handful of clients. I would sign them for, X amount of months. And by the time that X amount of months was over, I could never get them to re-sign. And again, it was just a lot of the things that I had learned in the past, on how to onboard people, how to talk to people about what we're doing together, setting those expectations. You know what I mean?
Was there anything, just to stay on that for a second, because when people are listening to this, again, as I know we're not calling out any containers, but just in general, can you tell me any coaching advice that just didn't sit well with you? Like that you've maybe learned differently or things that you were told that you tried, but that just quite frankly didn't work for you? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, for sure. So I coach pregnant and postpartum women. And so a lot of the women that I'm working with, they might not have two incomes to work with. They might only be working with one income. And I was taught in the past to charge $500-$600 for nutrition and fitness. Like I'm not functional. I don't do that kind of stuff. And so I 100% believe that like that's part of the reason why it was so difficult for me to get clients, that by the time, the 3 months was up, nobody wanted to resign because they couldn't afford it, because they were, you know what I mean? Those 3 months were already kind of a stretch for them. And so my retention was just garbage because of that. And I feel like that was the hardest transition to make, you know what I mean? Like that just, it felt very uncomfy to charge that much to people who I knew, you know what I mean? Like $500 to some people is like their entire car payment, right? And so it was like, that's, and they're like, I only have one income. That's my car payment. Well, how am I supposed to pay my car, kind of a thing, And so I really had to learn how to take a step back and be like, how can I actually make this affordable for my niche, but also make sure that like, obviously I'm still getting paid, and like I'm still charging what I need to make sure that my bills are paid and everything like that.
And I want to sit on that pricing thing for a second, because at some point when Jake kind of shares his story, I think one of the hardest things I told Jake was lower your rates. And I think he understood why, but it was scary. And this is really, in my opinion, one of the most controversial things that I talk about in FCA in the very beginning is like rates and what to charge. Because at the end of the day, I hate the argument of like charge your worth, because you all are not a dollar amount. Like there's no number there. However, I really do believe that for you to grow a coaching business, you have to get the repetition of people paying you money. And I don't care if that's $100 a month or 200 or 300, whatever. But if you constantly hear no, 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 you just need to get some quick wins. And for Sam, I needed her to get quick wins because she was at a place where she wanted to quit her job. She had a family. She wanted to expand her family as well. And she was so stressed after 3 years of trying and not getting anywhere. So now, my favorite milestone, I won't take it from you, but like talk to me about what happened in FCA.
Yeah. So, I was in FCA, and I don't even remember if it was 3 months or 4 months in. I don't remember the timeline, but I did quit my job. I was in a position where when I first started FCA, I was still just doing personal training within my gym. And then within FCA, my time in FCA, I was actually managing the gym. So I had more income coming in there. It was a little bit more sustainable, I guess I'll say, routine with a paycheck, if that makes sense. But I was still able to quit my job because I had clients on my roster that weren't quitting after the 3 months, right? Like I was able to actually keep people on my roster. And so that was the biggest thing. And we bought our house, which was amazing. And I was still able to quit my job. I am currently pregnant. So like we're expanding our family, right? So all of the things that I wanted to do that felt like they were just on pause for 3 years has now happened. So
No, I appreciate that. We'll get into more of the mindset shifts later. But Jake, tell me a little bit about you coming in. And you're kind of like the unique one here because, again, as you know, like you were the scholarship winner and we were like super nervous. I will never forget that call I had with you, Jake. And I was like, just get on this call with me. Just get on this call with me. Just get on this call with me. I was like, is this scholarship winner going to ghost me? It was so funny because Jake and I, it wasn't even a DM. And you know what I'm going to say? It wasn't even a DM like, ooh, let me get this guy in my program. But him and his, well, now wife were eating these healthy cookies at Whole Foods. And I was like, hey, where'd you get these cookies? Like, I don't even know when it started, but I guess like I reached out to you years ago or something. And like, it was funny because you were just somehow in my DMs. But long story short, I'm happy that you found us. But tell me what was going on in your head, because I know you had been frustrated for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy that I found you guys too. So I mean, I've been doing online coaching for probably 7, 8 years now. And I've been in like the functional health space for a while, so mainly gut health coaching. And for a long time I was just doing organic. I did pretty well with just creating content and allowing that content to generate leads for me. It was kind of like the whole post and hope thing. But, for me, it worked out pretty well for the most part. I mean, I would average between 6 to 8K months, but I always felt like I was having a hard time getting past that kind of glass ceiling in a sense. And for me, I always thought like the next logical step was, okay, I need to build a team. I need to scale with ads. Like I always thought it was like, okay, I've maxed out my potential with organic. Now it's time to go towards the paid traffic. So I ended up investing just an insane amount of money, like upwards of 50 grand in two different coaching programs to kind of help to build out the whole funnel and like structure and build a team. And frankly, I think it was really, really good, valuable information. But I think I don't know. I think I got a little bit impatient with myself and my desire to want to scale very quickly. I'm like bringing on, okay, let's bring on a setter, let's bring on a closer, let's bring on a co-coach. And I just wanted to be like the facilitator of all these different moving parts. I wanted to step into the CEO role and step away from coaching. And it was honestly probably the most stressful 6 months of my life. We had some big months, like 30K, I think was our biggest month in terms of like gross revenue. But when it was all said and done at the end of the month, I mean, our profit margin sucked. It was like 25-30%. I'm paying all these people out. And so although it looked good on paper and it's like, oh yeah, we're making all this money, sort of technically, but at the end of the day, it was so stressful and I wasn't actually even taking home that much more than I was making organically. So it was like 10 times the headaches and stress and pressure and frustrations for the pretty much the same amount of results. And so I'd found myself in a position where like, okay, if we sold, X amount of people every single week, then the ads were profitable and things were okay. And it was still highly stressful. But if not, like if we had a bad week, now it's like I'm losing money. Not only am I not making money, but I'm, going into debt. Right. And so it just created the situation where I was so freaking stressed that eventually I ended up kind of like just pulling the plug on everything. There was like, a few specific bottlenecks in various areas of the business, but I was like, I just think I jumped into things too quickly. And that was around the time where, Taylor had reached out and I was looking for just a better process, better system for how I would be able to scale organically. And I think that, the biggest things that I had gotten from the whole FCA coaching experience was just creating more structure in terms of my lead generation and conversation starting process, but then also just I guess developing the discipline or the schedule for myself to fit that in because it was frankly like, contacting people and tracking leads and keeping up with my spreadsheet was just, it's an area of the business that I don't enjoy as much as others. And so I started just making that the very first thing I did every single morning, just going through the processes, creating more structure with the things that I needed to accomplish every single day in order to, hit my metrics that I had set for myself. And, as I started to be more consistent with conversation starting, lead generation, all of that stuff, I mean, things just took off. I ended up getting to a point, I think, where we were um, at the end of the time in FCA, I think I had like a 10K month, but now I'm consistently, this is like monthly recurring revenue around 19 or 20K. So it's everything that I learned over that period of time, those few months working together, I've continued to implement and things have just continued to grow and grow, over time. And it's way less stressful, way nicer to have that safety net where going into the month you already have like a guaranteed almost 20 grand without worrying about like where my next client's going to come from or any of that stuff like the stability and just having people on recurring payments as opposed to doing a lot more of the paid in fulls has been nice. I love the stability that's brought.
And that's one of the, I want to pause for a second on this and kind of take a break and go into a few questions and then dive into Lou and Haley for their stories, but kind of break that up a little bit. But one of the things that I want to bring up is the topic of sales, right? Because we are in such a world right now where new coaches are popping up every single day. Fitness, business, all the things, right? And there is such a battle and so much friction around organic sales. And you guys can chime in and share whatever you want, right? But the reason that Jake had a hard time training his setter is quite frankly because he didn't know how to manage his leads anyway, right? And I had a conversation with somebody in my DMs quite literally this morning who has 5 online clients and is working very hard to create an ad strategy. And the bio is, I help women lose weight, right? Like it's that kind of thing, right? Very vague. This coach is very, very green. And I just want to be very clear for people listening, because you all are going to talk about DMs on here. You all are going to talk about Taylor made me track my leads, right? Taylor didn't give me some magical funnel, but 10K months, no one is a CEO. The business is barely getting off the ground. That is a small business in the grand scheme of things. That might be a milestone for you, but that is a baby business, right? And 10K, as you all know, goes by pretty fast, right? Especially as Jake has mentioned, or Lou always likes to joke with me being her expensive team member, right? Like, because she's in Australia, it goes by fast, right? And when you start to hire somebody, the first second that you get overwhelmed, you immediately start to think, I don't want the business anymore. Maybe it's not worth it to scale. Maybe it's not worth it to grow. And I want you all to just, as you're listening to this, take a pause, because I can't protect everyone from making mistakes. But when you hire too quickly and don't go through the hiring process because you haven't learned level 1, you're going to resent what you've done. And that's when I start to see clients personally in Path to 4%, the next level, they hit a 30K month, 40K month, and they're having such a hard time building the right team because they're impatient. And so they automatically think, I don't want a 7-figure business. It's not for me. No. You just have not dialed in your leadership. There's something that you skipped over. And to Jake's point also, and Haley, I know, can give a very similar, sentiment. And I can even say this too. He had really good content. And so his kickstart was a little bit of luck and some content skill. He didn't have to do as much outreach in the beginning because his marketing was really, really good. Now, for some of you, it could be the opposite problem. Your marketing is not good. You are not good at articulating. Lou is like, that's me. She gonna call on me. And so Lou was so good at the DMs though. And now is like, okay, my marketing matches my DM skills. And so I say this because, and I will get off of my high horse in a minute, but if you avoid marketing and sales because you just don't want to do it, or your ego tells you I'm too good to send a message, you can go be an assistant coach. You cannot grow a business and avoid marketing and sales. You literally cannot. And to Jess's point, which again, he kind of skipped level 1 because he does get a lot of referrals. He absolutely does. And Jess is not the person who on this call is going to tell you that he's in his DMs every day. He's not, because the business doesn't necessarily need that. And so Jess's time is spent on marketing and funnel development to get more of those people in the door, right? Everyone on this call had a slightly different DM process, a slightly different tracking process, a slightly different need. But I am not getting anyone inside of FCA and telling them to run ads because it's irresponsible and you're going to get pissed at me and you don't have the marketing or strategy or structure to support that, in my opinion. That's it. I think Toonie will run ads way too quickly. And so what I'm going to pivot to now is the idea of FCA being a group container. Group gets such a bad rap, right? Like people hear group and think, I need private. No, I need the private, right? And so I'm curious to know what your experience was like in a group container. Did you talk to me? What was it like? So Lou, I'm going to have you kind of share your experience on that, because that is a piece of resistance I hear frequently.
Yeah, I love group, actually. I'm not necessarily, I love private as well. It's certainly got its merits there, but I came from another coach, and there was a Facebook group for everyone. You'd post a comment, you'd ask a question and then it would be left for that 1 week's call to be answered anyway. And no one was engaging with anyone. So there was nothing. You were kind of left all week. Going into FCA was completely different. It didn't matter whether it was you that we needed to talk to or one of your support coaches in there. Other people chiming in with their bits and pieces. So for me, I started with zero experience. I was a brand new coach. So though I knew how to get people results, there were things about coaching and the logistics of it. And you could post a question in there, and even though you've got all these wonderful people in there that are trying to grow their business, so many people with experience, so many knowledgeable coaches that you can call on. You can post a question and you'll get answers in there that help support you in that way as well. So it wasn't for me, it wasn't just about the business side of things, because that's why we were all there. It was for me, it was like you've got this bank of knowledge of all different areas that you can draw on. And everyone was just so engaged and helpful. And you can put those times in where you're like, oh shit, this just feels hard, and just get a little support that way. You've got other times where something goes really well and you can post a win and everyone's cheering you on. And I don't care what anyone says, that's a really nice feeling to have people there supporting you, especially when you sit behind your computer screen all day. I mean, we're health and fitness coaches, all about get out and move and all the rest of it. And here we are behind a screen every day, not moving. I can spend 10 hours and go, oh shit, got to go and get steps. So I really loved the community, and personally someone that thrives in it. But I think if someone's going, oh no, I need one-to-one, that container kind of gives you that element of one-to-one anyway, because you're so personalized in there. But at the same time, you've got that group, that community that feels really special.
Absolutely. And I always say this openly, like my biggest regret years ago was not joining something like a mastermind. And it wasn't because I only wanted one-to-one, it was because I just didn't know that it was even out there. And as you're growing the business, and you guys can all chime in, like I mean, I know all of you personally, but a lot of your friends come from these containers. Like, I think that we live in a world where people are so quick to bond over negativity, right? People bitch in the break room, they bitch over problems. When's the last time you bonded over success or growth? Like, that's a really cool place to be. And I'm going to call on Haley next, because we're going to talk about community with you, but that to me, Haley, like as somebody who's worked with you for years at this point, like, and we'll talk about your success in a minute, but like you truly have immersed yourself in this community so hard. And I think it's something that you truly didn't know was like a missing link. And anytime you're having a hard day or hard like time, I feel like this has really helped you kind of get your footing back. So I want you to share a little bit about where you were kind of in the beginning, and when you first kind of realized, okay, yeah, this is where I should be.
Yeah. So I have a similar story to everyone else. I came from multiple different coaching containers. And when I first started FCA, I had like success really quickly, and it was crazy to me because I had spent so many years. I mean, similar to Sam, I had been doing my business for 4 years by the time I joined FCA and had no traction. But fast forward, I go into FCA and I met so many people who are my best friends right now. So much so, like I love that community. I love everything because it was so isolating. And I think that was something that was part of what held me back for so long, just feeling completely alone, not only just in business, but in life, because no one got it. What I was trying to do, not many people had done in my space yet, or at least weren't talking about yet. There was just always, you can't make money in CrossFit. You're never going to be able to do it. My family didn't get it. I mean, they weren't like mean, but they weren't like, yeah, go for it. They were kind of like, yeah, okay. I come from a very traditional, you go to college, you get a 9 to 5, and that's the life you live. And so not only like were the people in my closest circle, like they just didn't get it. And so coming into FCA, where not only was I supported so much that I was able to have such a quick mindset shift from past containers that like really skyrocketed my performance. But I truly met the people who today are on my speed dial, like Haley and all the other girls. And so it's so nice to go into something in a very isolating career and come out of it with not only your business besties, but just like your besties. And so that's like something that really shocked me about FCA because I'm a very introverted, I'm very much pulled back, especially when I'm uncomfortable. You know that very well. Like I like to hide, I like to recluse when I don't feel like I fully understand or when I feel like things aren't going my way. And I wasn't allowed to do that in FCA because I had so many people supporting me who would tag me and say, at Haley, where are you at? And I never at any point in FCA felt like I was in a group container. I was getting one-on-one messages from Lindsay. I was getting like extra feedback I'd get Loom videos that were like 10 minutes long from Elena. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like I got some stuff to work on here. And so there was never ever any point where I was like, I'm in a group container. It was always, I felt like I was the only one in the room. And I was like, this, like, either I'm special and I'm a special snowflake, or this is just how it is here. Because in the other containers, I didn't get that. I got very vague direction, very, felt like copy paste, if you will. And that created frustration and that created doubt for me and like this feeling of almost like lack in myself of like, okay, well, if it's that simple with that simple of feedback, like, why can't I figure this out? And it wasn't until someone took that extra time to really invest their energy into me and give me feedback that was actually really structured and helpful that I was able to flourish. And it happened so quickly because I did feel so cared for from the second night I got in FCA.
Question I have for whoever wants to answer this, and there could be a few of you guys, but in just like one or two sentences, if somebody were to ask you, how is FCA different? I want to know what you would say. And the context around this is I talk to coaches like all of you that have already invested, they've already tried, they've already done it, they've already put money in, and they're like, is this going to be the same thing over again? Right. So, what would you say to somebody who says, well, why would I join FCA?
I'll go. I just think it's the overwhelming, kind of piggybacking off of what Haley just said, but like the overwhelming amount of support and opportunities that you have to get on calls with coaches. I mean, how many calls you guys do? At least three a week, including all
Up
of
to
the
60 now, 60 in the 4 month time frame.
yeah, so a lot. Including a lot of the support that you're getting in the Slack with being able to submit I mean, it's part of the course, like the homework assignments, but like getting direct feedback for every aspect and it's just takes you down such a structured path where it's like, okay, one thing after the next, and at each step you're getting a bunch of eyeballs reviewing that particular area of your business. You're getting direct feedback and then moving on to the next thing. And so, at least for me, I mean, I'm somebody who's very much like process oriented, and that like helps me so much in terms of like feeling organized and preventing me from feeling overwhelmed or frustrated. And so, to me, like it was just it just resonated with how I like to learn. There's kind of step by step, and then you have all these ample opportunities to get questions. So I agree. I mean, it really, although it is a group container, I think that's more so a pro than a con in the sense that not only do you still get the individualized support, but as everybody else is talking about, that community is awesome, and being able to connect with other people in the space and even people who aren't the coaches, just the other clients in FCA, like getting to know them and like networking and connecting with them. And it creates a lot of opportunities, I think.
Yeah, one more person. Who else would answer like, I've tried this before. Why FCA? How is it different?
Kind of going off of what Jake said, yes, I feel there's structure, but I also feel like it's flexible structure from the perspective of, yes, this is a framework, let's try to stick to it. But it's so individualized at the same time that I never felt like I was being forced to do something in a way that didn't align with me. I got to say, I don't like that one. I don't want to do, not like I don't like that. I don't want to do it, but how can I make it fit me? Like, how can I make my pillars for content really fit my brand and my values and who I want to speak to as an ideal client and who do I want to work with? And there was never this push to just work with random people who you don't want to work with, which I experienced in past containers, right? Like, there was never that push. It was always more of that guidance. And that's like, hey, here's this framework to set your business up to be a business that you love, not a business that you hate, because I've been on the other side. And when I got into FCA, it's like, I love my business. Like, there's nothing I want to do other than this, when all the other experiences that I had really made me doubt, is this for me? Because I just don't like it. And so it's this flexible structure that can be so completely tailored to exactly what you're trying to do and build in your life, and not necessarily trying to just like check off boxes and fit yourself into this like proven framework that did it for someone else. So copy paste it. Right. And so that's what I really appreciated.
The term
100% agree with Haley on that one. It really, even though there's a structure, it's tailored to your business. And I think that, there's community, there's resources, there's there's all of that. But I think the biggest thing is that you still tailor it to what you want your business to be.
Absolutely. And I hear the term proven framework thrown around all the time. And I don't dislike that terminology necessarily, but for me, I really hope you guys understand that FCA is literally my entire brain organized in videos. Like, it literally, welcome to my brain. That is the structure of FCA. Like, me going through everything, thinking, okay, here's the bulleted list, here's the homework. And I am somebody, and while we all learn different, I am somebody that I want a checklist. I want to know what I should be doing. I want to know daily, weekly, monthly, what should I be doing? And then so we give you all of that so there isn't any guesswork. But if I get Haley in and Haley says, because this is what happened, hey, I just had some reels blow up. Hey, this is really moving fast. I don't know if this specific sales strategy makes sense right now. I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. It doesn't. We need to pivot that and do this, right? Same thing with Jake. I knew his background and I was like, hey, maybe we don't DM 40 people a day or whatever the number is. Maybe we tweak your framework, your messaging, your offer. And I think that because you have a fairly engaged audience, we can get more sales that way. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to teach you how to actually track and source people. And we did that, right? Like, it is so different. There's a framework. Yes, there is, right? However, there's a lot of asterisks based on getting to know you. But what I don't like is when somebody immediately says, I've tried that before and it didn't work. Well, let's try it again differently, right? That's the challenging part, is if something worked for you 2 years ago and doesn't now, no shit, right? Market saturation, baby. Like, shit that worked 2 years ago doesn't work anymore. We got to get better. We got to evolve a little bit. And so that could be a whole other podcast, but I appreciate you sharing that. Now, Jess, I'm going to start with you on this one. Forget the business for a second. Forget the skill, forget FCA. I want to know something that you have done in your life on a personal level that you're like, yo, this would not have been possible if my business wouldn't have gotten to a place that was stable enough. So Jess, you have multiple things I can think of, but tell me some.
I think I do have multiple things. There's a lot there. I mean, one is like coaching such a big part of my life. So being able to do it the way I'm doing it now, and just the evolution of the kind of business I am running and the way that it like fits my life is so much better now. Not only like doing things that I didn't think I'd be doing in my business before, as far as like mentoring and all of that, because of that individualized attention, like everyone was emphasizing. But I've been able to take a lot of vacations. I've been able to set better boundaries with clients and take more weekends off. Be able to take vacations as a solopreneur with no assistant coaches and still set aside a lot of time off for myself because of those better boundaries and better systems. And more money helps too. So vacations, I was able to get a hair transplant recently, so I'll have a brand new
Oh
hairline
yeah.
here pretty soon, growing in. And even in the business, just being able to do things like traveling to client shows, and in the future I compete. I want to be able to compete again, and my business fit in well with that when the time is right. So just this is what it's all about, is freedom, right? It's time and financial freedom. So being able to let Taylor help me, not just to make more money or get more clients, but build the life that I actually want, and like evolve in my business and understand the vision and like where I want things to go, and why. Even if that changes over time, like to be able to see like this is what it's really about. It's the impact I want to have, like how I want to be able to spend my time, and not just making a certain dollar amount.
Absolutely. And because you were able to get that certain level of stability, you were able to give yourself the time to think about that, right? Because I think about myself 6 years ago when I was fired. I had to just make money because I needed to pay rent. Like there was no other way around that. But you get to a level where, I don't know if this has hit you yet for some of you, but you get to a place where you're like, I will never be homeless again. And I know that sounds silly, but like, or ever, like I will never be homeless. Like when you get to a place in your business where you realize you will never ever be homeless, you start to take bigger risks, right? Like the worst thing that can happen is you lose a few clients, but the good news is you know how to get them again. That's it. That's it, right? We work a service-based business. We're going to have drop off. It's okay. But when you're like, I've got this covered. Like if everything completely went crazy today, my bills are good. When Haley sent me a screenshot a year or so ago and was like, "Oh my God, I have 5 figures in my savings account." She's like, "I'm sending this to you privately because like this feels weird to post in the Wins channel, but look at this." And I was like, "That's amazing. Like that's fucking cool." I think it was also when you were like, "I get to pay taxes this year." It was like the first time you'd ever paid taxes. Like that to me is so cool because, like I said, the phases of your business evolution literally make my heart so fucking warm because I know it's so not sexy because me telling you stability is kind of like you telling your clients to drink their water, right? I know it's not sexy, okay? But I don't care. I'm going to keep telling you stability wins every time. And some of you might have come from that pay in full business model in the past, which felt real warm and fuzzy in the moment. And then you're panicking on May 1st because you don't know where the money's coming from. And that's not stable, right? Jake, you just got married and had a beautiful wedding in Hawaii. So I would love to know just for you, like, how have you become a better partner, a better just friend? Like, just tell me about your life now and how that's just made you a better person.
Yeah, well, I'll say there's again a lot less stress between both my wife and myself because I mean she was doing the ads with me, she was one of the coaches, and so between her and I, like there's just I remember back when we were running ads, we would every day after work we would go to the take our dog to the dog park, but we would just like walk around this trail and we would just like be trying to troubleshoot like all these problems, and we would just be like so freaking stressed. I remember those walks were like more stressful than they were relaxing, and now it's like we go for these evening walks and take our dog out, and we'll actually mention this from time to time. We'll just be like, man, you know what, like gosh, running our business just feels so good now. Like there's no stress, there's no friction. And again, there's something amazing when you get to a place where you're not worried about where your next client's going to come from, or worried about how you're going to pay your bills, and being able to, I mean, we've got 3, 4 big trips planned after, our wedding in Hawaii. And it's like not having to stress about that or financially budget and crunch numbers and like, oh, can we make this work? We just, oh, you want to do this? Cool, let's buy the ticket. If we want to do a trip, you just do it and you don't have to think about it as much. You don't have to stress about it. And so it's been nice. And, obviously, business is not always sunshine and rainbows. There's still going to be good days and bad days, but but it just makes the whole, day-to-day process just so much more enjoyable.
I feel like your business, Jake, in the easiest way to explain it is it's so decluttered now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that would be a good way to describe it.
Yeah, like you came to me and I just were going back and forth talking about all these things you were doing. And I think at one point I was like, hey, can I ask you a question? Why? Like, I'm not even here to fight you anymore. Just like, why? You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
couldn't validate a lot of what it was, right? And I never ever want my clients to be like, well, Taylor said, so that's why, right? Like, I think FCA is very much the how, the what, and the why. Like, we're not just saying do this and grow. It's here's what I'm suggesting, here's why I'm suggesting, and here's how to actually implement it. And if you don't like that, tell me so that we can troubleshoot together because I really welcome that dialogue and that feedback. Anyone that has ever complained from my perspective of like the group aspect or whatever is typically somebody who's not really immersing themselves inside of FCA because as somebody who is very much like well, I'm an only child. I don't really share my snacks. Like, this is really, this is such a container where I'm like, I don't want anyone not having a relationship with me personally, as long as we're growing the business together. And, those of you on this call, I don't know if there's any of you ever where I wasn't talking to you multiple times a week, like in general, like we were talking constantly. But Jess, final question for you specifically. What would you say? Was there a moment in FCA where you just remember like something happening, whether it was a milestone, a personal feeling where you were like, I'm so glad I made this decision. Like during those first 4 months, was there some moment where something happened, you're like, this is all moving in the right direction?
Kind of thought that when I signed up.
It's like day one.
When I was like, I applied.
I mean, I did have somebody recently who joined FCA and she sent me a message like a day in. She's like, this is the most productive I've ever been in my business because I know exactly what to do. I don't hate that answer. I was just curious, because again, like I said, you guys are getting my type A brain. Lou, I love your story. I'm going to condense it really quickly and then ask you a few questions and we're going to go off on a I guess, tangent about you. So you are somebody that like you said, zero, right? Pretty much starting from zero. And you were able to match your salary, leave your job, and over a year later, you now are running a very successful six-figure business, right? But I would love to know for you kind of the after FCA, right? Because you've had struggles. It's hard. It's hard growing the business, But I love your like slow, steady growth that you're on. And I would love to know for you personally, like kind of what that after FCA has been like and what the business has brought to your life. And again, I know there are hard days like we all have, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did really well in FCA. I went from 0 to 10K months in FCA. And literally nothing. Like I didn't even have private followers on Instagram. I didn't even really use Instagram before I started with you. I did a couple of months with another coach, didn't do very well, came to you and it took off. My background being that I had some very heavy personal things that went on. And when I came into FCA, when I came out of the other side of FCA, what had happened was there was this foundation and structure built that as I hit adrenal fatigue through all the emotional stress that we had gone through with my partner, this business kept ticking over. It has been, well, I felt like it was paused, but I've actually looked back and it's just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. By the way, I'm about to close out in Australia. We have 1 more month to go, 2 more months to go for the financial year. And my business this year has grown 70%. Anyway, so it continued to be there. And I was able to keep the business going, even in some really, really hard times where I didn't have a lot to give. And I think that this is where that lifestyle becomes, if you spend that time creating that foundation, that system, that machine that you talk about. And okay, I'm not a 7-figure business, but it's still a machine. It still needs to be a machine. It still needs to operate. You still need to have that foundation. And coming into FCA, I had that. But coming out of FCA, I had that going into Path to 4%. And being in Path to 4%, I had that support getting through those hard times. And I've come out of that now and things are starting to ramp up again. You know, you and Mike have been awesome in going, right, where are we going now? Pushing just that right amount without pushing too much, because I realize now how fragile I probably was. And then the other thing I've had is, you know, we're going away in June for 4 weeks to Europe, and my business will just keep going. I just know I've got to get all the marketing set up and, you know, nurturing my clients and keeping them going. I can do while I'm away. Meanwhile, poor Dean's like, oh, I've only just got enough leave. I can't take another day because, you know, he only gets 4 weeks leave a year and that's it, you know. So I don't have that. I can just go and my business comes with me. I just pick my laptop up and go, and I can structure it in a way that it can be quite low key for that month to give me the freedom of being away, just by putting a little bit extra in now. And yeah, it gives you a lot of freedom, and you come out of FCA with a stronger mindset as well. I just know now that it works.
That is one of the things that I was about to highlight with a few of you on this call in general. And whenever you first start the business, like go back with me to like your first 5 clients, your very first 5. And every time a client has a sticking point or a problem, you immediately assume if you don't solve it in 3 seconds, they're going to quit. Like you start kind of getting stressed. And my favorite thing is, for example, if Lou has a problem now, she has already started troubleshooting it herself before coming to me about the problem. There's just so much awareness, because while a lot of my clients are codependent in the beginning, my goal is that I give you enough strategy and structure and just like knowledge to where you can start to troubleshoot problems on your own, so that you're not just word vomiting emotion to me. And a lot of that emotional intelligence is like my favorite part that I get to watch you guys go through. And also, even though a lot of us are really stubborn because we're entrepreneurs and we sometimes like don't want anyone to help us, you know, which is why half of us on this call, literally half of us, have had adrenal insufficiency. But I share all of that because I love that even in your hardest times, you are able to still grow the business, right? Haley, I want to ask you, like, what has it been like post FCA? Because it's now been over a year and a half at this point, and you've done a lot. I know you've obviously gone through some adrenal stuff personally, but just in general, like, how do you feel this year? How do you feel post retreat? Like, give me some words on like how you would describe the business and your relationship with your business now.
You know, that's a really interesting question for me right now. I think one of the biggest things that I've taken away from all of this and am continuing to develop, as you know, is my self-leadership and my emotional intelligence. Before it was very, while the money's up, we're on a high. While the money's down, we're going real low, you know? And I think one thing that I've taken from it is this, or like have developed at least in these past 6 months, especially through this adrenal process, is that sometimes I have to slow down to speed up. And I have to be okay with that. And I can't treat myself like a human trash can and expect that things will turn around, like from an emotional standpoint, because I do want to just, my natural inclination is to beat myself up and be like, it's not good enough. You're never like, just all the things that go through your brain. And especially this year with going through the adrenal stuff and starting in a new city and moving again and letting some things kind of go here, but being okay with that and thinking, you know what, I have the confidence that when I feel like, not necessarily that I'm 100%, I can give 100%. That's not what I'm saying, but I don't have to give a 100%, 100% of the time, because then I end up at zero. Whereas now I've kind of am starting to see and realize that if I cruise at a steady 80, things keep building and things keep going and things keep getting better, and I don't burn out on the other side. So really putting the things in place, like working from a coffee shop or working in the sunshine, which I thought, how dare I even consider that? I'm not a good enough business owner to be allowed to do that. Like, I don't earn, that's a 7-figure earner type of thing, you know? And realizing you've really taught me, and I've really learned, and especially since Nashville, I don't know why it clicked so much in Nashville, but it did. I have to take care of me to take care of this business to have the impact that I want. If I'm on zero, I can't give anymore. And that's where I really was, especially last year. I'm on fumes. I'm holding on and white knuckling that this doesn't crash and burn and I don't crash and burn, but just taking simple steps to actually take care of myself has made me such a more even keeled business owner and less of like a volatile business owner of like when the highs, I'm super high, but when it's low or something's not going my way, I'm super low. And that's one thing that I've really taken, especially from this past year.
And that's kind of the after FCA, right? Like what Haley brought up is very much the after, because what happens, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you start to gain traction and have 5-figure months, and you start to get on this high of expecting that level of growth. And Haley was somebody that came into FCA with about $500 in recurring revenue and hit an 8K month in weeks. I mean, she grew fast and that was recurring. And because of that, she set that pace for herself and an expectation. So when she didn't hit 14K 8 weeks later, she thought she sucked. Right. And like, that's not how that works. And so I think what you'll all realize, and you all know this, but after your highest month, typically there's a dip the next month because we let our foot off the gas, then we feel like a failure, then it's a spiral. And then, right, it's a whole thing, it's a hamster wheel. It's one of my favorite things about this after episode that I'm doing now is talking about those things that feel so unsexy that we do talk about in FCA. Like, how many of your other programs talked about financial literacy, emotional intelligence, like leadership? Did anyone talk to you about any of those things? Because I don't see that at least very often, or at least like not on a deep level. It's like one recorded extra thing and there's nothing else. And so again, I know that sounds so unsexy, but if I can teach you how to make money, those of you listening that have been broke your entire life or didn't come from money, you're going to spin that shit so fast because you're trying to get back to your level of comfort. And your level of comfort is having no money. And you feel weird wanting money. And I'm teaching all of you to say, it's okay to want to be wealthy. It's okay to want to be rich because rich means you're impacting more lives. End of story. There is not greed associated. End of story. You can have all that you want, but understand that you're going to have to be a really freaking good leader along the way. You're going to have to learn how to control your emotions. And that's one of my favorite things to teach these coaches so that they are self-sufficient business owners, can take time off and not panic on vacation while they're getting married in Hawaii, thinking the business is crumbling because they took time off. My last question for all of you, because I could talk about FCA for like the rest of my life, but okay, cool. I like FCA. Sounds great. You guys all have interesting stories, whatever. Tell me what it's like working with Taylor. What is Taylor like? Give me like a few sentences.
It's pretty hardcore. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, I've always loved your approach, kind of no bullshit attitude, right? You obviously have a lot of passion, a lot of love and care for all of the clients that you work with. But at the same time, like it also feels like I'm here to deliver you results and you take it very seriously. And I could tell that through the trainings that you do and how much support that you're putting out for all of your clients. And so, I mean, I have loved it. I love the no bullshit kind of, very raw, say it how it is kind of thing. But at the same time, it's like you're not being an asshole to anybody. Like again, you care more than anybody else in the entire business. And so it's fun. It's always fun and exciting.
I I think it's funny you say that because most of my clients will also lead with like Taylor's no bullshit. Like it's such a thing. And I think we hear that a lot, but it's often, like you said, associated with um not intensity, but a lack of emotion. And
Mm.
I know that it's me talking about me, but sometimes I really wish how much my clients truly knew that I cared about like them. And if you guys are inside of FCA or 4%, like you probably see like all the things that I'm constantly adjusting and tweaking and adding and delivering so that you guys know, right? But Jake, quick question for you before we move on to what you two think of me. Um, I've talked to men in the DMs that are nervous to work with a female coach. And that's no shade to them, but like what I don't know if it's ever even crossed your mind, but I know some men are like, I don't know, is Taylor gonna like get it? Is she gonna be tough enough? Like, does she get it? And I'm just curious to kind of get your perspective on maybe how I might modify my coaching approach based on the needs of the client. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe clarify that last part a little bit
Yeah,
more.
like for example, all three of you on this call, I will likely have a different approach for how I handle any tough conversation. Like 100%. I actually, not if, like 100%. Jake, if you came to me and the business was, having a hard week, I would approach it so much differently than Sam because I know how Sam thinks, and same with Lou. I also know our private conversations and how we each have a relationship. And so that's kind of what I mean is like, it's not one size fits all, but I think, and not generalizing men out there, but like I said, I've heard a handful of times, like, hey, I'll be real with you. I don't know if a female coach is going to be like tough enough for me. And so I'm just curious. That could be a whole like issue on their part, but like you're a dude and you're hanging out. Jess is off, so he can't chime in. But I was just curious to know if you know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that's
A
kind of
non-issue.
a weird perspective. I think that's a limiting belief for a lot of people to have. I think, in any aspect, I don't know what difference it would make, especially business coaching, men or
I
women. I
think
mean, I
those
know
men
for
probably
myself,
don't have great relationships either. You know what I mean? It's like who,
yeah.
right? Like who hurt you? That's my thought. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your take on that.
I know for myself personally, like I'm somebody who again, I thrive off of having frameworks and processes and plans and like this is the game plan. Like, I don't necessarily need my hand held as much, but again, I don't think that that's like a male or women thing. I think there's some men who can't really take like the very raw truth, just say it how it is, and it's vice versa, same thing with women. And so for me personally, I love your approach. I love the way you lay out information. I love the way that you present it. And so I mean I don't know. I can't speak for other men, but I have loved the whole experience.
All right. Well, if anyone says that again, I'll just CC you on the DM. I'm just kidding. Sam, all right. What about you? What's it like working with Taylor? What's Taylor like? How is she?
Um, I don't even remember what I said at the Path to 4% conference when I could describe you in one word, but I think it was intense. Um, because it's true. Like I will say I joined FCA because I felt like I needed that intensity, but I stayed in FCA and like I will 100% be in some sort of container like FCA or 4%, or if you come out with a new one in the future, like count me in, you know what I mean? Because you care. And I think that there's a difference in kind of going back to the conversation of like group coaching containers and just feeling like a number or whatever. You're a group coaching container, but I've never felt like I was client number 700. Like I never felt, you know what I mean? I mean, the fact that like I'm like, hey, I'm having this issue, and you're like, cool, start a chat with me and this person, and like, let's troubleshoot and like let's work through it together. Is like, okay, she actually cares about me. You know what I mean? Like, she cares about my business. She cares about me personally. You know what I mean? And it's not, again, it's not the container where it's like, well, kind of like Lou said it earlier, like bring it to the group call, and like if you can get that answered on the call, then great. But if you can't, then there's really nothing else for you. It's like, hey, I can bring this to the call, but I know 100% that I can put a question or a concern in the chat and be like, hey, I have a question with this, and I can literally tag you or any coach, right? Like any success coach, and be like, hey, I want you to respond specifically because maybe I know you've dealt with this in the past, or like you have a mindset about this certain topic that I really enjoy, and I know that that's going to be answered, you know, and it's going to be answered with care and with thought, not just like vague answers.
Absolutely. Not like keep going. Yay, clap them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lou, all right. How am I? What's Taylor like?
I'll be honest, I was worried about hiring a female coach. I'm probably one that has done better with male mentors only because the no bullshit, all the rest of it. And that was the part that attracted me to you. Structure, no bullshit. But at the same time, what we've gotten is someone that is invested in you and your business. It's like having someone that actually works within your business, not just a mentor sitting over the top looking down at you. You're in there. So when things are happening, you get in there with us, and we adapt it to whatever's going on in life at the time. And it's done, sure, you've got structure and processes and everything, but it's done tailored to the business. It's done with compassion. And I would guess that every single one of us on the call today have had some tough times in whatever shape or form. And you don't go, oh yeah, but this is the curriculum, so this is what we do. It's okay, where can we pull back? Where do we need to put your concentration? You're accessible. And I know from my perspective, being in Australia, the time differences can be a challenge for me, and it was a concern. But I have not felt the difference in the time, because you make it work. I don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and get on a group call. There's plenty of group calls that I can access in my time frames as well. So I think it's just like having you in the business, not a mentor that we go to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not just like sitting in my like castle over here, just like, oh, if you need me, holler at me.
In your little throne up there looking
Jesus.
down on us. No, that's not what it is at all.
No, I mean, listen, I love that we all have had, great relationships and whatnot. And I agree. I think that I'm somebody personally that had some mentors that I outgrew very quickly for the same reason. I felt like there wasn't a personal connection. I don't know if I want to say that I felt like a number, but like I didn't feel like that mentor really wanted to know me, right? It was, how's the business doing? Great. We'll talk next week, right? And that's okay. That's just not my style. So, because that's not fun. That's not fun. So, all that to say is, I am proud of each and every one of you, and you all have very different backgrounds, very different stories. And thank you so much for hanging out with me for this last hour plus. And if there's anything that I didn't say, let me know. But thank you guys for hanging out.
Thank you.